Hello and welcome to a new episode of Geek Lunch Me. I'm your host Chris, as usual. Now, in this episode, I thought we would take a look at they have just dropped the trailer, the first trailer for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, which if you've seen the video, I recorded a while back when we got the first stills from it. It's quite an interesting story because he basically pitched it as a Star Wars movie to Lucasfilm back when the takeover to Disney was happening, which they rejected and never happened. But he's retooled it a bit, dropped all these Star Wars references, and has come up with this movie Rebel Moon for Netflix. And as I say, we're going to take a look at the first trailer. If you like the video, don't forget, hit the thumbs up. Helps out a great deal. Gets the video seen by a lot more people. And if you've not already subscribed, why not hit that subscribe button? We would absolutely love to have you subscribed here at the channel. I will, of course, put a link to the trailer in the description below for you. So Rebel Moon. Now, the first thing we find out is that basically, originally it was said that if it was successful, it obviously had the potential to spawn a whole bunch of other films, much like pretty much any project that happens these days. They're always looking further down the line as it got the potential for more films and more money. And we're getting told this is actually Rebel Moon Part 1. It's called A Child of Fire, which is coming December the 22nd, which we already knew, as I say, to Netflix. Basically, we'll also be getting Part 2, which is called The Scar Giver, and that's coming April the 19th next year, 2024. Also in an interview, as Zack Snyder said, there will also be 2 different cuts of the movies that will get released. So there will be R-rated cuts that will have approximately 30 minutes of extra footage in the movies. It's a bit different for Netflix. I can't think of an example before where they've done this, where obviously in the past we've had films released at the cinema, and then when they come out on DVD and Blu-ray, that you would sometimes get director's cuts, unrated cuts that would have extra footage. It looks like now we're going to be getting that on Netflix, where we're going to have a more family-friendly cut. And then for those of us that like a bit more of the old ultra-violence, we'll be getting some R-rated cuts as well. Which sounds a damn good idea to me. So Rebel Moon, as Zack Snyder has said, it's basically it's based on the Seven Samurai in space, which is not a new idea. Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, where some villagers are being keep getting raided by bandits, so they go out and they find a team of samurai to help them fight these bandits off. It's been copied numerous times, Magnificent Seven being the obvious one, where they just basically took the whole idea and planted it in the Wild West, and then even down to like A Bug's Life has copied it as well. It's basically the same story, and it's even been done in space before with Battle Beyond the Stars, the sort of low budget sci-fi from the early 80s, which is an absolutely fantastic film. If you've not seen it, it's good fun, got some really good spaceship designs, it's basically exactly the same idea. And now apparently, Zack Snyder has reinvented it. Originally pitched it as a Star Wars movie, which was rejected, so he's just retooled it and is going out on his own. Apparently, he came up with the idea for the story back in the 80s, so it's been bubbling around for a long time. So hopefully, given all that time, he's got a really good story to go with the idea. Because that's the thing with Zack Snyder. His visuals were always great. His background is in design before he moved into directing. All of his stuff looks great, and I love his early films. The Dawn of the Dead remake was really good. 300 was a brilliant adaptation of the comic book using that sort of the green screen, the sort of digital backlot, which was just coming in at the time, which had been used to great effect on Sin City. He made the film look exactly like the comic book. It was great. I really like Watchmen. I think he did a really good job of interpreting the comic. I must admit, if you've seen the channel before, you'll know I don't really go much for his interpretation of the DC comics and the whole Snyderverse. They will leave me a bit cold. I did rewatch Sucker Punch the other day. I hadn't seen it since when it first come out. And again, it looks great, but you don't care about the characters in the slightest. So I'm hoping that this that say Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, is going to have some decent characterizations to go with the visuals. And we can see from the trailer, it looks great. It's got all those Zack Snyderisms. It's very desaturated in the color in some of the scenes. Lots of slow-mo, and that's become a sort of joke and a cliche on the internet to say that, that half of his films are in slow motion. But, he does use it quite a lot. But visually, the film, it looks great, as you would expect from him. It's sometimes hard to get the tone of a film from the trailer. It's obviously been done as very epic. They're obviously going for that Star Wars space opera vibe, going for a sort of a huge, big story, sort of encompassing the whole galaxy. The music's very epic and builds up, which is mainly it doesn't come across very fun. Which say it could just be they'd say they're trying to get over this big space epic in the trailer. So I'm hoping the dialogue, I'm hoping it'll be a bit more fun and not take itself too seriously. But we will see, hopefully with more trailers being released as we get nearer to the release date. The cast is fantastic. Sofia Boutella, who was the mummy in the ill-fated Tom Cruise Mummy movie. Charlie Hunnam from Pacific Rim. Carrie Elwes, the dread Pirate Roberts himself. Anthony Hopkins, we hear his voice in the trailer. I think from what I've read online, he may just be a voice of a character, one of the digitally animated characters, or even a robot possibly in the film. I'm not sure we're actually going to get to see him. Jenna Malone, who was in Sucker Punch, as I've mentioned before. Jimon Hounsou from Guardians of the Galaxy, he was in as well, wasn't he? And Bae Doona, who is great in everything she's been in, which is pretty much everything decent coming out of Korea. And one of the things I think will be most interesting is whether the film stands on its own, or whether or not we're going to be watching it and thinking, which parts of this were Star Wars. How has it been changed? To make it its own thing. Hopefully the story is interesting enough and engaging so that you don't think about these things too much. But it doesn't help itself. There's a couple of visuals there. There looks like a sort of bad guy with some red laser swords, and someone else wielding some blue ones, which, one could say look a bit like, sabers made of light, which sort of reminds me of something there. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if there is a whole bunch of stuff that makes you point at the screen and say, hey, that's obviously a stand-in for Millennium Falcon. Those are obviously rebels. Those are obviously Imperials. Those are obviously sort of Jedi types. So it'll be interesting. So as a Star Wars fan, I think just from that point of view, it's going to be an interesting watch. But what do you think? Are you a Zack Snyder disciple? Do you love everything he's done, or are you a bit like me that some of it's good, some of it's not so good? Are you looking forward to see what he's done with a Star Wars type property? Leave a comment below. It's always great to hear from you. I'm also trying to reply to as many comments as I can. And yeah, so that's Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire, coming to us December the 22nd on Netflix. And then Part 2, The Scar Giver, that's coming April the 19th next year. I hope they're good films. I'd absolutely love to have another big epic sci-fi space opera to get our teeth into. I believe there's also meant to be a video game coming out as well based on the property. So I'll cover that as we get some more details on that. Until then, thanks for watching, take care, and until next time, eat geek and be merry.